Welcome to this explainer. If you're a focused learner trying to figure out how the absolute best educational experiences are built, well, you're in exactly the right place. Today, we're diving into the architecture of learning. Think of educational design kind of like creating a blueprint for a house. I mean, you wouldn't just start nailing boards together without a solid plan, right? Well, the exact same goes for creating compelling learning experiences. We're going to look at the actual blueprints experts use to build courses that literally stick with you. But hey, before we look at those plans, let me ask you a quick question. Have you ever completely tuned out or maybe even just abandoned a really dull digital learning experience? Yeah, I'm pretty sure we all have. You log in, you stare at this massive wall of text or a totally monotone presentation, and poof, within 5 minutes, your brain is just somewhere else entirely. The stakes here are actually pretty high, because when learning environments are poorly designed, we don't just lose focus, we literally lose the opportunity to grow. And honestly, that's exactly what our source material addresses today. The era of traditional, teacher-centered content delivery. Just talking at you, that's officially out. Instead, the entire focus has shifted to learner-centered design. The goal isn't just to dump information on you, it's to create an environment that actively facilitates knowledge, builds real skills, sparks motivation, and crucially, ensures you actually remember what you learned for the long haul. Okay, let's dive into this. The solution to all those boring, ineffective courses, it isn't just throwing more expensive technology at the problem. Nope, it's instructional design. See, effective learning relies heavily on the structural design behind the scenes. It's this systematic, highly intentional approach to exactly how information is organized, presented, and evaluated. To make this super clear right out of the gate, we're actually applying a concept called signaling right now, just to reduce your cognitive load. So here's our roadmap for today. 1. Designing the learning experience. 2. Understanding how we learn. 3. The secret to motivation. 4. Making media meaningful. And 5. AI in the classroom. All right, Section 1. Designing the learning experience. The systematic process. So, if we're building a house, instructional design models are basically our structural blueprints. They bridge that gap between abstract educational theory and practical, everyday application. And the absolute gold standard framework for this, it's called the ADDIE model. That stands for Analysis, Design, Development, Implementation, and Evaluation. It's a highly structured framework that literally forces educators to make evidence-based decisions at every single step. This ensures the end result is actually measurable and effective. So you analyze the needs, design the strategy, build the materials, roll it out, and then you continuously evaluate. But ADDIE isn't the only way to build. We can actually compare ADDIE's very linear, step-by-step approach with something called SAM, which is the Successive Approximation Model. Now, SAM is highly iterative and agile. Instead of waiting until the very end of the process to see if a course works, SAM uses rapid prototyping. You build a quick version, you test it out, get feedback, and adjust it right away. It's incredibly useful for our modern, rapidly changing educational environments, where software and honestly learner expectations evolve daily. So, here's the absolutely crucial point. Regardless of the model you use, whether that's the structured ADDIE, the agile SAM, or even another system like the aligned Dick and Carey model, it all starts with needs analysis. You absolutely must systematically identify who your learners are, what technology they actually have access to, and what their cultural backgrounds are before you build a single thing. Because think about it, if you don't understand your learners' barriers from the jump, your blueprint is basically useless. Moving on to Section 2, Understanding How We Learn, Learning Theories. Okay. So if design models are the blueprints, learning theories are the physical foundation, the actual, literal mechanics of how our brains acquire knowledge. Let's walk through this matrix together. First up, we have behaviorism. This focuses entirely on observable behavior, which makes it perfect for teaching foundational skills through quizzes and rewards. Kind of like earning a badge in a learning app. Next is cognitivism. This one focuses on mental processes and uses strategies like scaffolding to really help your memory. Then we have constructivism, which views learning as a super active process. It powers project-based learning where you build knowledge through actual experience. And finally, connectivism. This is perfectly tailored for our digital age, leveraging digital networks, online communities, and AI to share knowledge across all sorts of platforms. And hey, just a quick meta demonstration for you, we are actually chunking this information right now. By organizing this entire explainer into these nice digestible sections and clear concepts, we are actively applying the cognitivist strategy of chunking. We're deliberately helping your working memory process complex information so you don't get overwhelmed. Pretty cool, right? Which brings us to Section 3,
the secret to motivation: sustaining engagement.
See, even with the absolute best blueprints and foundation, the house is just dark without electricity. Motivation is your ultimate power source for learner persistence. To generate that electricity, instructional designers use Keller's RCS model. First, you have to capture attention, maybe through some great storytelling or interactive elements. Then, you absolutely must prove relevance by connecting the material to the learner's real-world goals. Third, you build confidence through really clear expectations and scaffolded tasks so the learner actually feels capable. And finally, you provide satisfaction through recognition and a genuine sense of accomplishment. In isolating online environments, where, let's face it, it's so easy to just close the tab, this model is literally the key to keeping learners engaged.
Let's jump into Section 4, Making Media Meaningful, Multimedia Learning.
Now, if motivation is the electricity, multimedia is basically the interior design of our learning architecture, how the space actually looks and feels. And Mayer's cognitive theory of multimedia learning gives us the ground rules here. Coherence means excluding extra extraneous material. Signaling means clearly highlighting what's essential, and redundancy reduction means we shouldn't overwhelm your sensory channels, like, for instance, having someone read a massive block of text out loud word for word while you're also trying to read it yourself. Following these principles prevents us from totally overwhelming the learner. Because if we ignore those principles, we slam right into a wall called cognitive load. This is the mental demand placed on a learner. Sure, flashy animations, decorative graphics, and loud background music might be super tempting to add to a course, but if they don't serve a specific pedagogical purpose, they just create cognitive overload. The brain literally cannot process the essential information because it's just way too busy sorting through all the visual garbage. All right, Section 5, AI in the classroom, the new frontier. Going back to our architectural metaphor, this is the cutting-edge smart home technology that is revolutionizing what our structures can do. Generative AI, we're talking ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini, Claude, is entirely reshaping the educational landscape. I mean, we are looking at highly personalized learning experiences, automated assessment tools that save educators literally hundreds of hours, and immediate 24/7 learner support through intelligent tutoring systems. It's a real game changer. But to really harness this smart tech, you need a brand new digital literacy skill, and that's prompt engineering. Think about it. A basic prompt just says, explain instructional design. And the AI, it'll likely give you a generic, kind of boring response. But an engineered prompt gives a role, a specific framework, a target audience, and a format constraint. Something like, act as an expert instructional designer and explain the ADDIE model to a novice corporate trainer using real-world examples. Giving clear instructions like that drastically improves the relevancy, accuracy, and overall usefulness of the AI's output. However, we definitely have to address the practical, ethical considerations here. Yes, AI absolutely boosts productivity, but it brings some real-world challenges. We have to guard privacy and data protection. We need to ensure data accuracy so learners get correct information. There has to be transparency in how the AI makes decisions, clear guidelines for academic integrity, and above all else, we absolutely must preserve human judgment. AI is powerful, for sure, but it requires really careful institutional policies to implement it responsibly. Which brings us to this really vital quote from our source material. AI should function as a complementary tool that enhances educational experiences while preserving the central role of educators and learners. Artificial intelligence is incredible, but it simply cannot replace critical thinking, human creativity, or meaningful social interaction. It's an assistant, you guys, not a replacement. So, to summarize everything we've explored today, the ultimate blueprint relies on one simple equation: human expertise plus technological innovation. Meaningful learning only happens when the technology, whether that's a learning management system, a multimedia video, or generative AI, aligns perfectly with solid pedagogical principles, true human motivation, and the specific needs of the learner. So I want to leave you with a provocative thought to carry with you. Knowing the blueprints of instructional design, the theories of how we actually learn, and the sheer power of new tech, how will you balance human creativity with artificial intelligence in your next learning endeavor? Whether you're designing a course, teaching a team, or honestly just directing your own personal studies, you now have the architecture to build something truly incredible. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep building brilliant learning experiences.